6 months. 47 people came and went. Not one of them stayed with a widowed man and a baby who cried through every night in this God-forsaken stretch of Arizona territory, until that morning, when a rider appeared from the horizon, and she spoke only 5 words. Now I am here, but let me take you back to where this story truly begins. The cabin stood alone against the endless sky. No neighbors for 20 miles. No sound but the wind cutting through dry grass and the distant lowing of hungry cattle. Garrett Colton had built this place with his own hands 12 years ago, back when he still believed the world rewarded hard work. Back when Eliza was alive. Now the floorboards creaked under his boots at 3 in the morning. Again, the 180th night in a row. Little Nora was crying. She always cried. As if she knew her mother was never coming back. As if she could feel the emptiness that had swallowed this house whole. Garrett lifted her from the crib. His hands were rough from roping cattle and mending fences. Hands built for hard labor, not for soothing a baby. He held her against his chest, bounced her gently, the way Eliza used to do. But it never worked the same when he did it. Through the window he could see the ranch falling apart, fence posts leaning at broken angles, the barn door hanging crooked on its hinges. 3 horses he hadn't had time to brush in weeks. Cattle growing thin because he couldn't be in 2 places at once. A man alone with a child, trying to hold together a world that wanted to crumble. He remembered Eliza's last words. Fever had taken her mind by then, sweat soaking through the sheets. Skin turned a terrible shade of purple. She had gripped his wrist with surprising strength. "Find her," she whispered. "The woman who saved me, on the Santa Fe road. Find her, for Nora." Then she closed her eyes, and never opened them again. Garrett had tried to honor her wish, posted notices in 3 towns, asked every traveler who passed through, but nobody knew of an Apache woman willing to work for a white rancher. Nobody wanted to take that chance, so he searched for help closer to hand. A widow from Prescott came first, lasted 3 days before declaring Nora was possessed by demons. Her words exactly. Said no natural child screamed that much. Garrett had bitten his tongue until it bled. Watched her ride away without saying goodbye. Then came Maria. Young woman from Mexico. Pretty smile. Good with babies. But the isolation broke her spirit. She cried every night too. Said she felt ghosts in the walls. On the 7th morning, he found her bed empty. She had walked 10 miles to the main road in darkness, rather than spend another night on Colton land. The 3rd was an older woman, black woman named Ruth, who had raised 7 children of her own. Garrett thought she was the answer. She had patience. She had skill. Nora even stopped crying for almost 2 whole days, but Garrett couldn't pay what she deserved, and Ruth had her own family to feed. She left with tears in her eyes, apologizing the whole way down the road. After that, Garrett stopped trying. He learned to sleep in fragments. 20 minutes here, an hour there. Learned to strap Nora to his chest while he worked the cattle. She would cry against his shirt while he pulled fence wire tight, her tears soaking through to his skin. His own eyes too dry to cry anymore. This was his life now. This was all that remained. Until that morning, the sun had barely cleared the mountains. Garrett stood on the porch with Nora in his arms. She was quiet for once, too exhausted to cry. He was watching the eastern horizon, watching nothing, just existing. Then he saw it, a shape against the rising light.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing here, and how did you find this place? I heard a man was exhausted from trying to look after both.
A rider coming slowly across the flat desert plain. Garrett's hand moved instinctively to the Colt revolver on his hip. Nobody came this far without reason, and reasons out here were rarely good. The rider drew closer. Garrett could make out details now. A woman, long black hair tied back from her face, clothes made from animal hide, decorated with patterns he recognized. Apache patterns. She rode an Appaloosa, spotted horse moving with easy grace, as if it had traveled 1,000 miles and could travel 1,000 more. The woman sat straight in the saddle, eyes fixed forward, no hesitation, no fear. She stopped her horse 10 feet from the porch, close enough for Garrett to see the weathering on her face, the lines around her eyes that spoke of hardship, the calm certainty in her expression that spoke of something deeper. For a long moment, neither of them moved, neither spoke. Then she said it, 5 words that changed everything. "Now I am here." Garrett felt his breath catch, like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed. "Who are you?" His voice came out rough, suspicious. "What do you want?" "My name is Ayana." Her English was clear, precise. "I heard about a man raising a child alone. A child who needs someone. I think you need someone too." "You heard from who?" "From the wind, from the road, from the people who talk when they think no one is listening." Garrett's jaw tightened. "I can't pay much. Work is hard. Isolation is harder. 47 people have come through here. Every single one of them left. I am not 47 people." Ayana dismounted in one smooth motion, walked toward the porch, stopped at the bottom of the steps. Her eyes moved to the baby in Garrett's arms. "May I see her?" Every instinct told him to refuse, to keep his daughter close, to trust no one. But something in this woman's gaze held him still. Something ancient and knowing. He turned Nora slightly, so Ayana could see her face. And then something happened. Something Garrett could not explain. Nora stopped fussing. Her tiny body went still. Her eyes, those big blue eyes that had held nothing but tears for 6 months, they fixed on Ayana's face, studied her with impossible intensity. Then Nora reached out her hand, her tiny fingers stretching toward the stranger. Garrett's heart stopped. In 6 months, through 47 strangers, Nora had never done this. Not once. She had screamed at every new face, hidden against Garrett's chest, refused to be held by anyone else. But now she was reaching for this woman she had never seen before. Ayana did not smile, did not make the cooing sounds that other women made around babies. She simply nodded, a small acknowledgement, as if she and Nora had just agreed to something in a language only they understood. "She knows," Ayana said quietly. "Children always know who means them harm, and who does not." That night Garrett could not sleep, but not because of crying. Since Eliza's death, Nora slept through until dawn for the very first time. Ayana had fed her, sung to her in a language Garrett didn't recognize, held her with the practiced ease of someone who had done this before. Now Garrett sat on the porch. The stars spread thick across the black sky, his mind racing with questions he was afraid to ask. He found himself walking to the old trunk in the corner, the one that held Eliza's things. He hadn't opened it since the funeral, couldn't bear to touch what remained of her. But something pulled him there tonight. He lifted the lid. The smell of lavender and dust rose up. Eliza's wedding dress folded on top, a lock of her hair tied with ribbon, and beneath it all, her journal. Garrett's hands trembled as he opened it, flipped through pages of her handwriting, her thoughts, her dreams, her fears. Then he found it. The entry dated March 15th, 1884. "Today I should have died, lost in the blizzard on the Santa Fe road. Horse threw me and ran. I could feel the cold taking me, taking everything." Then she appeared.
Choose something else. I'm not used to having someone in my house, especially after everything fell apart.
I understand. Loss makes you distrust.
A woman from nowhere, Apache. She built a fire, wrapped me in furs, stayed with me through the night. Her name was Ayana. She saved my life, and the life of the child I carry inside me. Garrett read the words 3 times, his heart pounding louder with each pass. He walked out of the cabin, found Ayana sitting by the corral, staring at the stars, as if she had been waiting for him. "You knew my wife." It wasn't a question. Ayana didn't turn. "I saved her 2 winters ago. She was carrying a child. This child. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I did not come here to collect a debt." Now she looked at him, her eyes reflecting starlight. "I came because the child needs me, and because you needed to choose me for the right reasons. Not because you owed me something." Garrett stood in silence, processing, calculating, trying to understand what this meant. "Eliza told me to find you. Those were her last words. Find the woman who saved me. For Nora." Ayana nodded slowly. "Then she guided me here." even after death. She guided me to you. That night, Garrett finally understood. This was not coincidence. This was not luck. Eliza had sent Ayana, sent her across 2 years and 1,000 miles, to finish what she had started, to raise the daughter she never got to hold. A weight lifted from Garrett's chest. Not hope, not yet, but something close. The suffocating loneliness that had been crushing him began to ease. He was no longer completely alone. 3 weeks changed everything. The fence post stood straight again, white paint fresh on the rails. The barn door hung true on oiled hinges. Horses gleamed with brushing. Cattle grew fat on properly managed pasture. The ranch was coming back to life. But more than that. Nora was coming back to life. Garrett watched them from across the yard. Ayana sitting in the shade of the oak tree. Nora in her lap. The baby was laughing. Actually laughing. A sound Garrett had almost forgotten existed. Ayana was teaching her things. Simple things. How to hold a wooden spoon. How to stack small stones. How to listen to bird calls and know which one meant danger and which one meant rain. And Nora was talking. Her first word had come 3 days ago. Not Papa, as Garrett secretly hoped, but Aya, her baby tongue trying to wrap around Ayana's name. She said it constantly now. Aya, Aya, like a prayer, like a promise. Garrett found himself watching Ayana too, the way she moved. Efficient, no wasted motion. The way she handled horses, whispering to them in Apache until the most skittish stallion calmed under her touch. The way she read tracks in the dust, could tell you what animal passed and when, and whether it was healthy or sick. She had skills, real skills, the kind you couldn't learn from books. But she never talked about herself until one night. They sat by the fire after Nora had fallen asleep, the flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. Garrett nursing his coffee. Ayana staring into the flames as if she could see something there that he could not. You never told me why you have no family. He said it without thinking. The question had been burning in him for weeks. Ayana was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was flat, controlled, like she was describing something that happened to someone else. I had a family, a village, a mother who made the best corn cakes in the territory, a father who could track a deer through solid rock, a younger brother named Kuruk who followed me everywhere I went. She paused. The fire crackled. 2 years ago, men came to our village, white men with guns and torches. They said we were on land that belonged to them now. Said we had to leave. My father refused. He had lived on that land for 40 summers. His father before him. His father before that. Another pause, longer this time. They burned everything, shot anyone who ran. My mother died in the fire. My father died protecting her. I survived because I was hunting in the mountains, miles away. When I returned, there was nothing left but ash and bodies. Garrett felt cold spread through his chest. And your brother? Kuruk? Ayana's jaw tightened, the only sign of emotion. My brother survived too, because he was with them. He led them to our village, showed them which cabins held the elders, which held the children. He betrayed us for promised gold and land. Who were these men? Who led them? A man named Virgil Crane.
Shit, they'll come back. Not just once, but until I'm down.
Then don't wait for them to choose the timing. We'll choose first.
You talk as if you fought a whole pack before.
She spoke the name like a curse. He owns land all around here now, thousands of acres, built on blood and broken treaties. Kuruk works for him still. They call him Black Dog now, because he turned on his own pack. Garrett processed this, connected dots. Crane, I know that name. He sent a man to buy my land last year. I refused. Then he will come again. Crane does not accept refusal. He takes what he wants, or he destroys what he cannot take. As if she had summoned him with words, the sound of hoofbeats reached them the very next day. Garrett was in the barn when he heard them coming. 5 riders approaching from the south road. He grabbed his Winchester and stepped out into the light. The lead rider was a man in his 50s. Thin face, gray beard trimmed neat, scar running from his left eye to his jaw. He wore a black vest over a white shirt, silver watch chain glinting in the sun. Everything about him said money. Everything about him said danger. Virgil Crane. Garrett recognized him from descriptions, from whispered warnings in the Prescott saloon. This was the man who had bought up half the territory, the man nobody dared refuse. Crane stopped his horse 20 feet from the barn. His eyes moved slowly across the ranch, taking inventory, calculating value. Colton. His voice was smooth, pleasant, the voice of a man who rarely needed to raise it. I sent you an offer last year for this land. You never responded. Response was pretty clear. Garrett kept his Winchester low, but ready. Not interested. Crane smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Circumstances change. I hear you lost your wife. Hard to run a place like this alone, especially with a child. Managing fine. Are you? Crane's gaze shifted, found Ayana standing in the doorway of the cabin, Nora in her arms. You're keeping an Apache woman in your house. That's not going to sit well with your neighbors. People talk. People get ideas. Things happen to men who invite savages into their homes. Garrett felt his grip tighten on the rifle. Get off my land. Crane didn't move. His eyes stayed on Ayana, cold, calculating. You know, he said slowly, your wife, pretty woman. Shame what happened to her. Fever, wasn't it? Came on so sudden. Some might say, unnatural. The words hit Garrett like a punch. He stepped forward, raised the Winchester. Get off my land. Crane raised his hands in mock surrender, still smiling. Just making conversation, Colton. But you should think about my offer. Think hard, before something else unnatural happens. He turned his horse, rode away with his men, left nothing behind but dust and dread. That night, Garrett told Ayana what Crane had said. About the fever being unnatural, about the implied threat. Ayana listened without expression. Then she asked him to describe exactly how Eliza had died. The symptoms, the progression, the color of her skin at the end. When he finished, Ayana was quiet for a long moment. That was not fever. Her voice was hard, certain. Those symptoms, the purple skin, the convulsions, that is Jimson weed poisoning. Someone put it in her food, or her water. Your wife was murdered, Garrett, and I think we both know who ordered it. The world tilted. Garrett grabbed the table edge to steady himself. Eliza, his Eliza, murdered, not taken by God, not lost to nature, killed, deliberately, by a man who wanted his land. Something shifted inside Garrett that night. The grief that had been drowning him transformed into something else, something colder. Something with teeth. The soldier he had buried after the war clawed its way back to the surface. He would find the truth, and when he did, Virgil Crane would answer for it. Garrett rode to Prescott the next morning, found Ezekiel Tanner at his trading post, old friend from his cavalry days, man who heard things, knew things, kept his mouth shut.
If anything happens tonight, you should leave first.
No, I didn't come here to run away.
I've lost too much already.
Then let's hold on to what's left.
Together.
Shut about most of them. Zeke poured whiskey, listened to Garrett's questions, then leaned close. Crane's been buying up everything around your property for 2 years. Every ranch, every homestead, paying pennies or driving people out. You're the last holdout, the only piece he doesn't own. Why? What's so special about this land? Zeke glanced around, made sure no one was listening. Silver. There's a vein running under your property. Big one. Word is it could be worth $500,000. Crane knows. He's known for years. He wants that land, Garrett, and he doesn't care how many people die to get it. Everything clicked into place. The offers to buy, the threats, Eliza's death, all of it, all for silver buried in the dirt. How many men does he have? 12 guns, maybe more. Professionals, ex-army, ex-outlaws, men who kill for money and don't ask questions. Garrett finished his whiskey. Then I need more ammunition. When he returned to the ranch, smoke was rising from the cabin. His heart stopped. He spurred his horse to full gallop, covered the last mile in minutes, leaped from the saddle before the animal stopped moving. But it wasn't fire, just the cook stove. Ayana was making dinner, Nora playing on a blanket nearby. For one terrible moment, Garrett had seen it all burn, had seen everything he had left taken from him. That fear, that cold certainty of loss, it stayed with him, settled in his bones. He knew now, this wasn't just about land anymore. This wasn't just about silver. This was about everything. His daughter, his home, his future, and the woman who had come out of nowhere to help him protect it all. That evening, as the sun painted the sky orange and red, Ayana stopped suddenly while hanging laundry. "Someone is watching us." Garrett's hand went to his gun. "Where?" "The ridge, east side. I have seen movement there twice today. Someone on horseback, keeping distance, but watching." Garrett squinted toward the ridge, saw nothing, but he trusted Ayana's eyes more than his own. "Crane's men? Maybe, maybe not. The way he moves, it is familiar to me, like someone I once knew." She shook her head. "I cannot be certain. They doubled their watch that night, but whoever was out there stayed hidden, a ghost in the darkness, waiting for something only he understood." 3 days later, the riders came. 5 of Crane's men, not Crane himself, just his dogs, sent to deliver a message. Garrett was checking the north fence when he heard Ayana shouting. He ran back to the cabin, found the men surrounding her on the porch. Nora screaming in her arms. One of them was reaching for the baby. Garrett didn't think, didn't plan. He drew his Colt and fired. The shot took the reaching man in the shoulder, spun him around, dropped him in the dust. The other 4 went for their guns. But Garrett was already moving, years of cavalry training taking over. He shot a second man in the chest, dove behind the water trough. Bullets splintering wood above his head. From the cabin, another shot rang out. Ayana, with the derringer she kept in her boot, hit a third man in the leg. The last 2 broke, ran for their horses. Garrett let them go, let them carry the message back to Crane. In the aftermath, they searched the wounded men, found a note in one pocket, orders from Crane himself. "Drive out the Apache, if necessary, take the child." Garrett read those words, read them again, felt something cold and final settle in his heart. This would not end with warnings. This would not end with negotiations. This would only end one way. He looked at Ayana. She looked back. And in that look, an understanding passed between them. An agreement that needed no words. They would take the fight to Crane, before Crane took everything from them. That night, they made preparations, cleaned weapons, counted ammunition. Garrett packed extra rounds for the Colt and Winchester. Ayana checked her bow. 15 arrows, each one handmade, each one capable of killing silently in the dark. The plan was to ride to Prescott, leave Nora with Zeke, then find Crane and end this, one way or another. They left before dawn, Nora sleeping against Ayana's chest, horses moving quiet through the gray morning light. 4 hours into the ride, Ayana raised her hand, signaled to stop. "Something is wrong." Garrett listened, heard nothing but wind. "There, in the rocks ahead, horses, at least 4. They are waiting." Ambush. Crane had anticipated their move. "Can we go around?" Ayana studied the terrain. Canyon to the south, narrow, dangerous, but possible. They turned their horses, entered the canyon. Walls rising high on either side. Barely enough room for 2 horses side by side. That was when the shooting started. Gunfire erupted from above. Men on the canyon rim, firing down, bullets ricocheting off stone, sparks flying in the dim light. Garrett grabbed the reins of Ayana's horse, pulled both animals forward, deeper into the canyon, where the walls provided some cover. "How many?" Ayana was already off her horse, bow in hand. 6, maybe more. She loosed an arrow, a scream from above. 1 down. Garrett drew his Winchester, fired at muzzle flashes, hit another, but they were pinned, trapped between high walls and enemy fire. Then something unexpected happened. From the opposite rim, new gunfire. Someone shooting at Crane's men from behind. 2 more dropped before they understood what was happening. The remaining shooters scattered, retreated, disappeared into the rocks. Garrett and Ayana waited, hearts pounding, guns raised. A figure appeared on the rim above them. Apache, Male. Face painted with markings Ayana recognized instantly. Kuruk, her brother, the one they called Black Dog. He looked down at them, said nothing, then vanished back into the wilderness. Ayana stared at where he had been, her face unreadable. Why? Garrett asked. Why would he help us? I do not know. Her voice was barely a whisper. But I intend to find out. They pushed forward, faster now, knowing that Crane was already several steps ahead, knowing that time was running out. They never reached Prescott. The trading post was burning when they arrived, flames consuming wood and memory, Zeke's body hanging from the signpost, carved into his chest. A single letter. C and Nora. Nora was gone. Ayana turned in circles, frantic, searching, but there was nothing to find. The men who had taken her had planned well, struck from the shadows while Garrett and Ayana were pinned in the canyon. Used the ambush as a diversion. Ayana had been drugged, a cloth pressed against her face during the chaos at the canyon's edge. She had fought hard. The scratches on her arms proved it, but there had been too many, and they had taken Nora before she could stop them. They found the note nailed to a post. Bring the land deed to Devil's Spine. Come alone, or the child dies. Garrett read the words, felt his hands shaking, not with fear, with rage. Ayana put her hand on his arm. We go together. The note says alone. Crane expects you to follow his rules. That is why we will not. She was right. She had been right about everything. They mounted their horses, turned toward the mountains, toward Devil's Spine, toward the end of everything, or the beginning. Devil's Spine rose from the desert like the backbone of some ancient buried beast. Red rock formations twisting toward the sky. Canyons cutting deep into the earth, a place where men went to hide, or to die. Garrett and Ayana reached the ridge above Crane's camp as the sun began to set. Orange light painting the rocks the color of blood. Below them, the camp spread across a box canyon. One way in, one way out. 10 men visible, moving between tents and cooking fires. Rifles everywhere. Ayana studied the terrain with hunter's eyes. The cabin in the center, that is where they will keep her. How do you know? Because that is where I would keep something valuable. Something I expected someone to come for. Garrett counted guns, counted men, calculated odds. They were not good. I go through the front. His voice was steady, decided. Draw their attention, their fire. You go around, up the back wall, the way you said Kuruk showed you when you were children. That route is dangerous. One slip and the rocks will announce me. Can you make it? Ayana was quiet for a moment. Then, I have climbed harder paths, for lesser reasons. They waited for full darkness, stars emerging one by one, moon rising fat and bright, casting silver light across the canyon. Enough to see by, enough to kill by. At midnight, Garrett began his approach. He led his horse down the main trail, slow, deliberate, making no attempt to hide. Let them see him coming. Let them think he was following orders, surrendering. Voices called out from the camp, guns raised, men moving to intercept. Garrett stopped 50 yards from the entrance, raised his hands, the land deed visible in his right fist. I'm here. His voice carried clear across the still night air. I brought what you wanted. Now give me my daughter. Movement in the camp. A figure emerging from the central cabin. Virgil Crane. Silver watch chain catching moonlight. Smile spreading across his scarred face. Colton, glad you could be reasonable. He walked forward, flanked by 2 gunmen. Throw the deed down, nice and slow. Garrett didn't move. Show me the girl first. Prove she's alive. Crane nodded to one of his men. A moment later, a woman emerged from the cabin, carrying Nora. Even at this distance, Garrett could hear his daughter crying. Alive. She was alive. He threw the deed on the ground, and then he moved. The Colt was in his hand before anyone could react. 2 shots, 2 men down, the guards flanking Crane dropping like cut wheat. Chaos erupted, shouts and gunfire filling the canyon. Garrett dove behind a rock, bullets chipping stone inches from his face, from somewhere above, somewhere in the darkness of the canyon wall. A flame ignited, an arrow arcing across the sky. Trailing fire, the signal. Garrett burst from cover, Winchester at his shoulder, firing as he ran. 3 men coming from the left. He dropped the first with a chest shot, the second with a head shot. The third got close enough to swing a rifle butt. Garrett ducked, drove his knife into the man's gut. Kept moving, above and behind. Ayana was descending the rock face, silent as shadow, her bow singing death into the night. One arrow took a guard through the throat. Another found the heart of a man running toward the cabin. Garrett reached the cabin door, kicked it open. Inside, a single guard held Nora, gun shaking in his hand, eyes wild with fear. Stay back, or I... The guard's voice cut off, an arrow appearing through his neck. He crumpled, Nora screaming but unharmed. Garrett scooped up his daughter, held her against his chest, felt her tiny heart hammering against his own. Papa, she said it clearly, her second word. Papa. Outside, the gunfire was dying, bodies scattered across the camp. Crane's army reduced to corpses and cowards running into the night, but Crane himself was nowhere to be seen. Garrett emerged from the cabin, Ayana meeting him in the firelight, blood on her face, not her own. Where is he? Before she could answer, a voice came from the shadows. Right here. Crane stepped out from behind a wagon, gun raised, pointed at Garrett's head, at Nora's head. Put the child down, both of you. Weapons on the ground, now. Garrett hesitated, calculated angles, distances, no shot, no chance. Slowly he knelt, set Nora on the ground, laid his Colt in the dust. Ayana dropped her bow. Her knives clattered beside it. She stood with empty hands. Crane smiled, that cold, dead smile. You really thought you could beat me? In my own territory? With my own men? Looks like those men didn't help much. Hired hands. Crane shrugged. Replaceable. Unlike you. Unlike that squaw standing beside you. Unlike that little girl who's going to grow up never knowing her father's face. He raised his pistol, aimed at Ayana's chest. Maybe I'll start with her, the savage who caused me so much trouble. Her brother told me all about her, said she was the dangerous one, said I should have killed her 2 years ago when I had the chance. Then he should have warned you better. The voice came from behind Crane, a figure stepping out of the darkness. Apache features twisted with conflict, gun trembling in his hand. Kuruk, Black Dog, Ayana's brother, the man who had watched from the ridge, who had saved them in the canyon, who had been following them for days, wrestling with demons only he could see. Crane half-turned, confusion and anger mixing on his face. What are you doing? I said shoot them. Kuruk didn't move. His eyes were fixed on Ayana, on the sister he had betrayed, the sister he had been watching from shadows for 2 years, the sister he had never stopped loving, even as he destroyed everything she held dear. I cannot, his voice cracked. I will not kill her. Then you're as useless as the rest of them. Crane's gun swung toward Kuruk, but Ayana was faster. She dove for her fallen knife, threw it in one fluid motion. The blade buried itself in Crane's shoulder. His shot went wide, catching Kuruk in the chest instead of his head. Garrett rolled, grabbed his Colt, fired twice. Both bullets found their mark. Crane staggered backward, fell, lay still in the spreading pool of his own blood. Silence descended on the canyon, broken only by the crackling of dying fires and the ragged breathing of a dying man. Kuruk lay on his back, blood bubbling from his lips. Ayana knelt beside him, her face a mask of emotions too complex to name. Sister, he reached for her hand. I am sorry for everything, for the village, for mother, for father. I was afraid. Crane said he would kill me if I refused, said he would give me everything I wanted if I helped. I was weak. I chose wrong. Ayana took his hand, held it tight. Why did you follow us? Why did you save us in the canyon? Because I watched you all these weeks, watched you with the child, with the man, watched you build something from ashes. Tears cut tracks through the dirt on his face. It reminded me of Mother, of how she made our home feel safe. I wanted to feel that again, to be part of something that was not built on blood. You betrayed our family, our people. I know, His breath rattled, growing weaker. I cannot undo what I did, but I could choose differently at the end. I could choose you. Choose the man who protects you. Choose the child who deserves to grow up. Mother would have wanted that. Even for a son as worthless as me. Ayana's grip tightened on his hand. You are not worthless. You are lost. There is a difference. Tell me she would have forgiven me, even if it is a lie. I need to hear it. Ayana was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady. She would have forgiven you. She forgave everyone, even those who did not deserve it. A ghost of a smile crossed Kuruk's face. His eyes closed. His hand went limp. Ayana sat with him for a long moment. Then she reached out, closed his eyes fully, spoke words in Apache that Garrett did not understand. A prayer for the dead. A farewell to a brother she had mourned twice. Once when he betrayed them. Once now, when he finally came home. She stood, walked to where Garrett held Nora, looked at them both with something that might have been peace. It is finished. 2 weeks later, the ranch looked different. New fence posts gleamed white in the morning sun. The barn door hung straight. Horses grazed in pastures growing thick and green. Spring had come to Arizona territory, and with it, something like hope. Garrett sat on the porch, watching Nora toddle across the yard, chasing a butterfly she would never catch, laughing each time it escaped her grasp. Ayana emerged from the cabin, sat in the chair beside him. Neither of them spoke for a long while. They had learned each other's silences by now, learned that some things didn't need words. Finally, Garrett broke the quiet. I sold the mining rights, company from San Francisco, paid enough to secure Nora's future, education, property, everything she'll ever need. Ayana nodded. That is good. There's enough to build a second cabin, too, if someone wanted to stay, long term. She turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face. How long term? Long as Nora needs you. He paused. Long as I need you, I suppose. Ayana was quiet, watching Nora stumble and rise and stumble again, never crying, never giving up. I came here with nothing, she said finally. No family, no home, no purpose. I thought I was surviving until death caught up. Then I found you, found her, found something worth fighting for. Is that a yes? That is a yes. They sat together as the sun climbed higher. As Nora finally caught the butterfly and immediately let it go, watching it flutter away with the same joy she had felt chasing it. Garrett thought about all that had brought them here. The loss, the pain, the blood spilled in desert canyons. He thought about Eliza, about the words she had whispered with her last breath. Find her, for Nora. He had found her, or perhaps she had found him. It didn't matter anymore which was true. What mattered was this moment, this porch, this woman beside him, this child laughing in the yard. Family was not always blood. Sometimes it was forged in fire. Sometimes it was built from the wreckage of broken lives. Sometimes it was two wounded people choosing to stop bleeding alone. The West had taken so much from both of them, but it had given them this, a second chance, a reason to keep going. A home built not on silver or land or conquest, but on something that could not be bought or stolen or burned. On the simple promise of tomorrow. Garrett reached over, took Ayana's hand. She did not pull away. In the yard, Nora looked up from her game, saw them sitting together. Her face broke into that impossible smile that only children possess. "Aya," she called. "Papa, look." She was pointing at the sky, at a hawk circling high above the ranch, riding the warm currents, free and wild and untouched by everything that happened below. They watched it together, the three of them, this strange and wounded and beautiful family. And somewhere in that moment, Garrett felt something he had given up on long ago. He felt like he was home. That winter, a stranger rode up to the ranch. Worn clothes, weathered face. A telegram clutched in his hand. "You Garrett Colton?" "I am. Message from Santa Fe. Thought you should know. Virgil Crane had a brother. Twin brother. Name's Victor. Word is he's been asking questions. About who killed Virgil. About a ranch in Arizona. about a man and an Apache woman and a little girl. The stranger tipped his hat, rode away into the fading light. Garrett watched him go. Then he looked at Ayana. She looked back. Neither of them spoke, but both of them knew. This story was far from over. The end.
This story leaves a very clear lesson. In life's darkest moments, what saves people isn't always money or power, but the choice to stand by each other instead of falling alone. The male protagonist loses his wife, exhausted from being both a father and shouldering the burden of the ranch, seemingly with no way out. But when the female protagonist appears, the first thing that changes isn't the fence being repaired or the livestock getting fatter, but the life in that house being rekindled. The baby stops crying, the man stops despairing, and hope gradually returns. The biggest lesson lies in the fact that sometimes a stranger enters our lives not to take something away, but to give us back what we've lost. Peace, hope, and a sense of being understood. The story also reminds us that family isn't just made of blood, but can be built on loyalty, protection, and shared hardships. Furthermore, it teaches about courage in facing the truth. When the male protagonist discovers that his wife's death was not an accident but a crime, he no longer hides. He chooses to stand up to protect his child and his home. The female protagonist does the same. She carries within her the pain of loss and betrayal, yet still chooses to believe in good, choosing to save a child and give it a proper childhood. Even those who have made mistakes have a chance to redeem themselves if they dare to turn back, because a person is not defined solely by their past, but also by their final decisions. Ultimately, the deepest message is, life may take away much, but it cannot take away our ability to love and to start over. When two wounded souls choose to hold hands, they not only survive, they create a home, a place where tomorrow still holds hope.